Hello. Welcome to our students. Let's give our students a hand. So I have intros for 3 out of the 4 of you. So who is Elan? Elan. Hi.
Hi.
So Elan Tilburg's in her 2nd semester at MiraCosta College, and her major is undecided. She's extremely passionate about social activism and plans to minor in women and gender studies. She'll be attending the Omni and HTCC student research conferences later this semester. Welcome, Elan. Then Michelle. Hi,
Michelle. Hi.
Hi, Michelle. So Michelle's a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, non-traditional returning student. She's attending MiraCosta and Palomar simultaneously, and she tells me, this is hard to believe, but she's taking 23 units this semester. Good on you, good luck. And is a dual major in sociology and multicultural studies. Planning to transfer to UC in fall 2018 and hoping to eventually attend law school to become a civil rights lawyer. Very good. And Sara Larson?
Hi.
Hi, Sara. You've been at MiraCosta. Sarah's been at MiraCosta since fall of 2015, transferring to a 4-year university this coming fall. She's a social major and has a passion for combating social issues and creating lasting societal changes. She's worked closely with several groups and organizations, most recently Border Angels, a San Diego-based nonprofit that strives to aid our immigrant population. So our 4th student is Lena, is that right? Lena? Lena, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm a chemistry major. I've been here since also fall of 2015. I'm a first generation in school, and I came to Guatemala from Guatemala in 2013. So it's been a struggle with the language, but here I am.
Great, thanks, Lena. All right, so I have a few questions. Not everybody has to answer every question, but we definitely want to hear about your experiences. And I want to start with just the problem of traditional textbook costs, or what problems that can cause. So if you have a story you can tell about the impact that traditional textbook costs have had on you, or if you have other friends that you know for whom that's created some challenges, we'd love to hear from you. So just jump right in.
I personally have been fortunate enough to be able to buy or rent all of my textbooks, but I do have friends that financially struggle a lot, greatly trying to pay for their classes and their textbooks. Here at MiraCosta, the price for one class is $46, but sometimes students pay, $80, $100+ just to rent a textbook, and that seems just outrageous that we're paying maybe sometimes double of what a class actually costs. So that's the struggle that I've seen a lot.
Okay, I'll go next. I've been pretty fortunate in that I've been typically utilizing the GI Bill, so I'd get a book stipend. This last semester in fall of 2016, and then this upcoming semester, I've decided to not use it so that I can save up that money for when I transfer. So with getting textbooks now, it's a lot more difficult. I usually am pretty reliant on hoping that a professor has a book on reserve in the library, but a lot of times they don't, or it'll be an out-of-date edition and not the one that we're using for the class. So even though I guess the like what's in it, the context is similar, it's still not like accurate to where, I mean, I've had tests where, or quizzes I should say, just to where like the way that a question was worded, I mean, the same thing wasn't included in the textbook, just because there are different editions. So, yeah, I don't know.
Last semester I didn't buy any of my textbooks, mainly because most of them were lecture-based, so I was able just to pick up the content from class, or it was a chemistry class and I'm looking more towards like sociology and stuff, and I'm never really gonna pick up the chemistry book again, it's not one of my main passions, and it was very expensive, so I figured that I could just use online resources and really pay attention to lecture and notes and she posted her slides from lecture up on her website, so it wasn't as much of a struggle.
For me, it was a little more hard because for most of my classes, I have taken chemistry and calculus and physics classes in which most of the professors require the book, or you actually need the book to do any homework or do any studying in advance to attend the class. Some of the books that I have used in the previous chemistry classes, they're really, really expensive, and you have to read not once but twice the book to be able to understand it. And some of the books were not, I wasn't able to understand them fully, so I most of the time will have to Google any other source, any other books to be able to understand it. Thankfully, this last semester, one of my professor offered the OpenStax books, and I got information on what was OpenStax. I wasn't aware of OpenStax at all. And I was able to go back and study my chemistry books from OpenStax, so that was really nice of me.
Thanks. Those are really interesting variety of experiences that you've had, and I'm wondering if you know of other students that have taken other ways of trying to get around purchasing textbooks, and if you've seen any impacts on others that have tried to get away from buying a text.
I personally have friends that have had to drop out of their courses because they did not buy the textbook or they did not have an accessible textbook, and their grade was just so far gone that they had to unfortunately drop the class. So not only did they waste a large amount of time, they also wasted their money too, which is extremely unfortunate. You know, a lot of us are struggling students financially, so I think that's something that's really important to keep in mind. Also, I have had classmates and friends that take pictures with their phone and of their classmates' textbooks, and that when they go home is extremely difficult to, you know, blow up the image and read off a small phone screen to do your homework. So those are the experiences, and I've had a couple of those experiences as well myself.
I was going to say the exact same thing, so yeah.
Yeah, another thing I've learned that helps you if you don't want to buy the textbook is if you, I know it's a little too late because people have already scheduled their courses, but if you use a big chunk in between classes, like if you have a 9 a.m. and then your next one is at 1 o'clock, you can go to the library, and there's a lot of online resources such as videos on YouTube or PDFs, and it's just a really great chunk of time to read if you don't have access to like a smartphone or laptop. So the library is a really good resource.
In my experience, I learned how to do group studies so I can borrow books from other classmates, and I also got to learn that there was a lot of more access to the reserve books, and I would just basically copy them, take pictures, or do anything capable that I was able to get access to those books.
Thank you. So overall, I guess, is there sort of a feeling that you think students have about textbooks in general that you feel like faculty maybe aren't fully aware of how students feel about those?
I don't want to speak on behalf of other students, but myself particularly, I think that I've had professors before who, if they have quite a few books that we're required to get, I mean, it's kind of, we're reduced down to just like teaching ourselves and learning out of the book, and they're not so great at either knowing the material themselves, and then this past semester, I had one class that we didn't have textbooks, and it was really nice because it was just completely open discourse, and we actually discussed things and learned things and talked to each other and heard different experiences. So just that in general was really helpful.
Yeah, going off of that, for me personally, I love lecture courses, and I feel like it's a really helpful way to learn the material than just like by yourself reading a textbook, which I know a lot of teachers don't have the privilege of doing because they have a lot of content to cover. But being able to like have those conversations and have a bunch of different resources instead of one is really helpful in a course for me personally.
I totally agree, and I've also had experiences where I buy or rent a textbook for not very cheap, and I either don't use the textbook at all, it's not really necessary, or I use it maybe 3-4 times throughout the whole entire semester, and that just feels so wasteful on our part and on professors' parts. You know, it kind of seems sometimes like it's just an add-on, like an afterthought, and I just there's so many better things that we can be spending our money on as students.
Yeah, I just want to chime in real quick. I just got an email from a professor. I have a Saturday class this upcoming semester, and he said that if we don't have the textbook on the first day, that it's automatic 15 points off. I obviously don't have the textbook yet. Like I said, I'm not using my GI Bill, so I haven't even gotten my financial aid yet. So I mean, on that note, I'm pretty, I'm down 15 points already. So, and it's not even started. So yeah.
Wow. So it would be a challenge going into a class not knowing whether you are going to use that textbook all the time and be over-reliant on it or not at all, and you just don't know. That's tough. So when you all have taken classes where there were course materials that were open or zero textbook costs through the library, and maybe you could just speak in more detail about what difference that made to you in those classes, both, I mean, in terms of your life and not having to worry about spending, but did it also make any difference in the way that you learned by having that kind of access to those materials?
I found it extremely helpful, and I loved personally having those open textbooks that are so accessible from home. In terms of learning, I feel like it helped me because a lot of those books you can just type in keywords, and pages where that content is found pops right up. So I love that. I think it's so helpful when you're sitting there and you're writing a 15-page research paper and it's 2 a.m. and you're a little bit stressed out. So I personally love that. Yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, also, this isn't as big of a deal, but when you can have 3 textbooks on a laptop rather than carrying 3 textbooks, it's lighter and less heavy, which isn't as stressful, but it takes a toll.
And I feel like we as students absolutely feel like you guys have our best interests at heart when you provide us with an open and accessible resource for us, as opposed to making us rent or buy textbooks that are so expensive that we probably won't use very much ever again. So that just makes us really feel like you guys want us to succeed that much more.
And in my own experience, I using the open textbooks was really helpful because as when she was explaining that you can access it from anywhere, I literally did that every time. I was able to take the book because I'm old school and I needed the actual physical book. I bought it, and I needed to use it at home because I need to highlight and do like little problems in there. And then when I will go to class, I will use the actual online, and then I will use it on my phone. So having access to that and being able to study anytime that you have pieces and parts time here is really nice, because other than carrying the whole book, that is not really helpful.
Nice. So you spoke, all of you, to some various advantages to the digital format. Are there downsides? Have you had challenges with the digital format? And maybe you could share a little bit about how you've dealt with those.
Yeah, there's a lot of downloads that either won't work on a Mac or won't work on a PC. So when you download it, it's different for everybody, or it takes forever to download, or you don't have Wi-Fi in certain places. Even though there's a lot of places now, you can go to Starbucks or any coffee shop and it will usually offer free Wi-Fi. But on the go, if you want to like cram before class or in your car, and I don't know, well, don't read and drive, but just. Yeah.
I personally, maybe this is an odd thing for me to say, I personally prefer printed textbooks, but I feel like that's just, I like to highlight and put my sticky notes and whatnot, but I any day would trade a traditional textbook for an online version that I can get for free and access anytime. So that is a challenge, getting used to being online when you've been, having a traditional textbook since school started, but I think the advantages so far outweigh the disadvantages.
For me, one of the downsides was there were some little errors here and there on the book that we were using. Thankfully, our professor was able to find those problems and fix it, and then get in contact with OpenStax, so they were able to fix all of those. So I would say that was the minor
I think some of you mentioned that you have a preference for print text, or it's easier for you with print text, but you're making the effort. I think that's a really common question that comes up a lot as we think about this. And it's not just OER. Sometimes choosing a publisher text, it's cheaper if you get the online version versus the print version. I'm just wondering if any of you have strategies or things that you've worked on, or ways that things that you've figured out to help you with online reading, whether it's OER or some other form of online reading. Just if you have ideas that you can share, things that might be working for you to help learn from digital materials.
For me, for my situation in particular, if I find a certain, maybe like 2, 3, 4 pages that I really need the content and I need to have that for an assignment or research or something, I will print them out at home or in the library, and it's pretty cheap to print here at the library, and then I'll just highlight that way. But that's only with the material that I know that, like, I really need to memorize this, or I need to use this or cite it or something like that. But other than that, you have to adapt. I mean, there's not really a way around it if you're going to use OpenStax.
This doesn't exactly answer the question that you asked, but I'm also kind of, grew up learning with actual, tangible books, so that's just how I learn. I don't know. But I think it's very important just to have options, and that's really the whole, ultimately, what's good for professors and for students. I've had classes where either professors didn't know if the textbook was on reserve, or they didn't know even generally how much it was. And then I've had other professors who had even like links of, on this site, on Chegg, it's this much, on Amazon, it's this much, if you rent versus buy, and like they've done all their research ahead of time. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's their job, but just knowing that not all students are walking into the classroom in the same situation. I don't know. So, yeah. That's all.
I have personally learned that there are some programs in the computer or whatever form you're getting the books, is that you can highlight. That's what I have done. There's some programs that you can download in your phones too, that you can highlight whatever you're reading, and then you can save it and then go back. I personally have learned to do that, so that was it. A plus.
Yeah, also computers die, they crash, they buffer, so it's sometimes nice to have the tangible product, but also what Sarah was saying earlier, just having a computer open, doing like Control F and finding whatever keyword or thing you're searching for is so much more easier than if you had just like a book you had to read 4 pages through to find like that one sentence you're looking for.
Great. Okay, those are some helpful things. I think we're all learning how to be more proficient in our use of digital materials. You had some good insights, I think. Lena mentioned that there were some quality issues that came up, but they were quickly fixed in one of her OER texts. So I'm wondering if overall, in your experiences so far with open or OER materials, has there been a quality concern compared to traditional publisher texts, or do you find any sort of obvious differences, or do you feel like they're one or the other, they're kind of similar?
They're about the average. I have problems with the actual book for, let's say, chemistry, which was the one that I went back to redo. Some of the chemistry books that I had used before had their problems itself. Maybe not in the problems, but actually in the explanation that they were giving. So I think in average it will be about the same for both of them.
I've had wonderful experiences with any open resource that I've had in my classes. I don't think that the quality is any less. I haven't had any glitches, but that's unfortunate that you guys have faced a couple of glitches. But I found the quality to be very high, and I don't think it's any worse than an actual print published book.
Okay, great, thanks. I think we have just a few minutes if folks in the audience have questions for our students. It's been great hearing from you, and yeah, let's hear what other questions we might have.
Now they're going to have to mark in the catalog if the class is an OER class and what the cost of the class will be. Will this include
I think so, yeah. I think that's such a great thing to happen or to have on this campus. We have so many people that, you know, they come to school part-time or they take a couple classes at a time and then they go and they work full-time or they work 2 part-time jobs or they have families. So that's, yeah, absolutely. I didn't know that that was something that the school catalog was going to have, but that's fantastic. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, my answer is the same. It'd be yes, absolutely. That would highly influence the classes that I would take, so yeah.
Yeah, this is something brand new for the spring. So when you go into Surf and you search on classes, if it's a zero textbook class, it will have a little icon next to it that identifies it that way. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, we haven't really gotten much publicity to the students about it. We've just been getting it all set up, but it's ready to go. So you'll be hearing more about that.
That's great.
So I heard you mention, a lot of you mentioned you don't really, for a lot of classes, you don't really read the textbooks, or also that you like the idea of like lecture formats or conversational formats. So if you had an ideal way to learn information on your own, let's say it's not like just based on what's in class, what would it be? Would it be a video, reading? What works for you? Podcast?
Love podcasts. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think podcasts are great, videos are great. I had Professor Jeff Maricco last semester, and he did a lot of video lectures, and I loved it. You can do it anytime that's convenient for you. So I think that's a great resource. I personally love reading articles too. So I find those very helpful when I have classes that professors assign articles every week or every couple weeks.
Yeah, for me, documentaries especially, and articles. I took Robin Allen in Women's Studies this past semester, and that was like by far my favorite class. And honestly, going into that, it was like, I thought was going to be my least favorite class just because. So yeah, I'd say documentaries because the stuff that we talk about in class, it's good always to hear other people's experiences because they're all so different, but documentaries just kind of drive the point home, and I feel like that's something that you can't necessarily get out of a textbook or even a professor, like, you know, just reading off a PowerPoint slide, so yeah.
For me personally, I love like what you were saying earlier about like lectures, and I also love it when the professor has slides and then they post those slides online just in case you miss something during lecture or if you're sick or if it was just like an off day for you. Also, I love when a class turns into a conversation and you really get other people's point of views, or just I feel like it's a better environment for the class, but it does have downsides, as in like it could trail off into one thing, or like only 2 people want to have a conversation and the rest of the class isn't feeling it.
Because of everybody learning methods is different, I think that it's more dependable on the person. For myself, I'm more of hands-on, so I need to be able to be doing something, to like problem-solving stuff. So if you send me off to read an article or to read a whole book, I might not do it because that's not me. I'd rather see a video, get to the point, and let's get to it.
I think ideally if you can have an amalgamation of many different types of learning and learning materials, then obviously that'd probably be best for everybody.
Time for one more question.
In your own personal style, do you consider yourself more of a reader or a Googler?
Does Googling for articles count? Because I personally love, yeah, I mean, I use Google as a resource, you know, if I want to catch up on news or if I want to, you know, look up certain articles or studies or things like that. I find it very helpful, but I don't mind reading, personally.
Definitely Googler.
I guess it depends on what I'm Googling or not. I mean, if I'm reading philosophy, I'm going to get a book of Nietzsche or something, not Google. Plus, you have to pay for that stuff anyway if you're not at the Maricosta Library. So I'd probably say I'm more of a reader.
I would say I'm more of a Googler only because you have so many more sources, and if you're searching for a specific thing, like sometimes you have like keywords you're searching for and it like the exact thing you're looking for pops up and it gives like a clear explanation of everything you need. So I like Google as a resource.
All right, thank you so much to our students. It's been great hearing from you.